Bonjour. Hello. Uh, Welcome to the webinar of Camargo Fellowship Program. My name is Julie Chenot, and I'm the Executive Director of Camargo Foundation.
Hi, my name is Zoe, and I'm the Programs Coordinator at the Camargo Foundation.
We will share with you a short presentation, so some slides present to support what we will present. We'll have a short hour together. We'll make sure that we leave enough space for just providing you first some information and then having some time for you to ask questions through the chat box. But maybe let's share the document.
I'm going to start to share our screen and share with you our presentation. You can type in the chat any question that you have or any remarks. There is a box for the Q&A, so you can either type in the chat box or in the Q&A box. And we will answer all the questions at the end of the presentation. Okay. Here we are.
So just for info, your line is mute. So just what was so it was saying, just go ahead and ask your question, and we'll take some time at the end to answer to all the questions. We have an hour together. We'll go through a short presentation of the foundation, and then about the describe and tell you more about the residency program, the Camargo Fellowship, and tell you about how to apply and what are the criteria and everything, and then answer your questions. Just to go on, just to start, actually, let's first give you a few info about our founder, Jerome Hill. So Jerome was born in Minnesota, in St. Paul, in Minnesota in 1905. And he was the grandson from someone who built the railroad in the northwest of the US. And he studied art and came to south of France in the 30s, loved Cassis. I mean, Cassis is just a very stunning, very beautiful place. The landscape is beautiful, but also already back then, there were quite a lot of artists, and not only French artists, but more European and artists that were in Cassis. So he really liked the place and decided to come every summer until he bought a property in 1939. And right after the war, he decided to really develop there on that property, which is just on the edge of the sea, really develop a place that would be the perfect place for him to invite other artists and friends to be able to be together, live together, exchange, experiment, create, and also to present. And there is on the campus of Camargo a theater. Just to go on Jerome Hill during his life and the time of his life at Camargo here, he invited a lot of artists to be here, invited people like more experimental, people like Jonas Mekas, invited Olivier Messiaen, French composer, invited the Living Theater, American theater company, very part of the avant-garde, and but also was very much related to some person here in south of France, like the Lucien Clerc, the founder of Les Rencontres d'Art. So it was really, and he has this festival in the 50s that we're bringing some of these artists, creating new work and presenting it here at what is now Camargo. He set up the foundation in 1967, really to support artists and scholars from the US to come here and learn more about about French art and culture. And slowly but surely through the years, it has been opening up, becoming more international, and since over the last 8 years, we have been very much working on developing more connection at international level and making it much more open, and also connection at regional level. If we talk about where Cassis and where Camargo is, so Camargo is located just within Cassis, which is a small town of 7,000-8,000 inhabitants. It is just next to Marseille. Is 20 kilometers, 15 miles from Marseille. It is south of France, so you can see on the map where it is, just to give you an idea. If we talk about the Cassis itself, here are a few pictures of Cassis. Cassis, so is located in the Calanque National Park, which is the Calanque National Park is the only national park in an urban area in Europe. So it's part of its very strong extreme proximity between what is called nature and a very big 2 million inhabitant urban area. It's a small harbor of 8,000 inhabitants in winter. In summer, it's quite a touristic area because they had something like it goes to 40,000 inhabitants in summer. But that's why the Camargo Fellowship is not through summer, it's through fall and spring, winter time, where it's quieter and nicer and nicer for being in residency at Camargo. If we look at the bigger region, so you have a few cities that are not so far from Cassis. First of all, Marseille, which is the second city of France. It became through the years and lately is really a very active, very dynamic, very city where a lot of artists are based. There are quite a lot of art organizations, museums, art centers, performance places, quite a big place for emerging artists also. But it's also a place for, in Aix-Marseille, there is a huge university with a strong focus on Mediterranean studies. And here you have a few pictures of Marseille, but also of Aix. Aix is located it's an hour away. About driving is 45 minutes away from Cassis, but with public transportation is more like an hour and a half, where you have the Aix Opera Festival, and you have different also other venues and museums, and you have for the scholars and for quite a few of the residents of Camargo, a place of very high interest, which is the archives, les archives d'outre-mer, that are really like the colonial archives of France. So that are super interesting to go to. And the last picture we had were about Arles, which is further away, is probably 80 kilometers away from here. By public transportation, it could be, I would say, an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's a very interesting place for photo festival, but then also for Luma Foundation and different Van Gogh Foundation is there in different places. So it's where it's going. Would you be here? No, Liv.
I'm gonna speak a bit about the campus. So as Julie said, Camargo is located in Cassis, a small village, a small town in the south of France, an hour away from Marseille. I'm just to precise something. So it's really, Marseille is quite close to Cassis when you drive. The train station in Cassis is located about 40 minutes away, walking distance from the foundation, which is 2 minutes away from the city center. The foundation is really in the heart of the city of Cassis. So public transport, as Julie was saying, can be a bit frustrating, especially in summer, since Cassis is a very touristy city in the summer, so it's very busy and there's a lot of people going back and forth from Marseille to Cassis. In the winter and in fall, it's way easier to use public transportation to go to Marseille, but also to go to different cities. The foundation is actually divided in two sides. There is an upside, it's crossed by a street. The upside is where it's called the panorama side, where the offices of the staff are located and where actually I think 6 apartments, resident apartments are located. There is a small garden also on the side of the foundation, and down the street there is the side of the foundation that we call Pierre Froide, which means cold stone, and the battery, where Jérôme used to live. On this side, the seaside, which is facing the sea, there are also 6 apartments that we reserve for residents. There is also an open air theater, which was called the Theater of the Sea, which is the picture that you see on the here, if you can see here. So down on the right. This is a public space that we use for public events, but that can also be used by residents during their residency at Camargo. The apartments are all different from one another, so we will explain that in more details later in the application, with who you can bring in which apartment, etc. The facilities of the campus are, so Camargo offers mainly research-based residencies throughout the different programs that it has. So the Camargo Fellowship is one of the programs that Camargo produces and coordinates, but all of the programs, the residency programs that we have here are residency for research. So the facilities that we can offer are not facilities that are equipped for production. We have an artist studio, which is the picture on here on the right, up on the right. It's a bit less than 30 square meters. It's a space that can be used by visual artists or anyone who would like to use a space for themselves to experiment during their residency. Next to the artist studio, there's also a photo development space where you can develop photos in black and white only. There is a library with many books that have been kept at the Camargo Foundations for decades. The library is open to every resident.
24 hours.
24 hours. So you can even use the library during the night if you want to. It's really open to anyone. And there is what we call the Composer Studio, which is a music studio. It's located on the first floor of Lalec, it's one of the apartments that the Camargo Foundation has. So there is a living space on the ground floor and the Composer Studio is located on the first floor. So it has 2 pianos, different equipment for...
It has a piano and harpsichord and some equipment, and we can always ask for additional equipment if needed from a partner organization in Marseille.
So there is also technical equipment in this space. We have a 4th space, which is which we call the technical cabin. It's a space that can be also used by any residents that has technical equipment to edit films, to edit sound, to work on sound, to work on images as well.
It's a small cabin that is just above the sea. It's a nice space that can be used. All those spaces, except the library, will be attributed to one fellow. Fellows don't have to share the space. So, and just one thing, and it's not possible for, because we have different person on site, different disciplines. So for example, in the past, we had some resident asking, can we have the composer house and the visual artist studios? That's not possible because usually we have different fellows on site. So we will attribute, and we pay attention to the request of the fellow to make sure that we can provide the right
equipment and resources.
Yeah.
And just maybe one quick word, as I was saying, it's mainly research residency that we offer here. We don't have a dance studio at Camargo. That's something important to be kept in mind for choreographers or artists, researchers working with movement. When you apply for a residency at Camargo, we welcome choreographers at Camargo within the Camargo Fellowship. Currently, there is one choreographer in residency at Camargo. There are spaces, especially on the Pierre Froide sea-facing side of the foundation. There are quite big gardens, the open air theaters, with spaces that can be used for movement, but be aware that there is no proper dance studio at Camargo. So
and no Marley or things like this. So just keep that in mind. If we now dive into the Camargo Fellowship, we'll go through it quite at length. If I just to give you an overview of the program, this program is really the flagship and the program that was launched at the beginning of Camargo back in 71. So, and it went through all those years. This year we decided to change. It's also to change slightly the program. With two things, actually three specific things. In the past few years, we used to have select 9 artists and 9 scholars and thinkers, so a total of 18. No, we decided to reduce it to 14, so 7 scholars and thinkers and 7 artists. But we decided to make the session longer. So in the past, it used to be a choice between 6, 8, and 11 weeks, with something in the fall of 8 weeks, and in spring it was possible to choose between all those lengths. We really think that it's important to Camargo. It's a place where, as Zoe was saying, is very much a place to do research and think and reflect, and to take time. So we decided to go for 10 weeks, and the exchange between the different fellows is really an important part of the residency. So we decided that it would be better to have everybody stay for the same length and not have people leave like before. Because it was not very it was not flowing very nicely. Sometimes people were also often regretting to have decided to go for 6 weeks and not for the 11 weeks. So now it will be 10 weeks in fall, 10 weeks in spring. And you will see we also decided to improve, to add on top of the per diems, to add a small fee to make it more comfortable and more suitable and more for the fellows. It's very much, as I was saying, a program to provide time and space to think, create, and connect. Is not only for each person, but it's very much also to the group dynamic is also very important. There is no theme. The idea is also very much to have different people working on different things, coming from different background, but have interdisciplinary approaches, different connection and exchanges that will happen through the residency.
So we are going to go through the different eligibility criteria for the 3 categories you can apply with for the Camargo Fellowship. For the artist category, you can apply in one of the 6 subcategories that you will find in the application form, which means that you can apply as a visual artist. You can apply as a filmmaker, as a composer or sound artist. You can apply as a writer, as a choreographer, theater director, or performing artist, which constitute one subcategory, as a multidisciplinary artist, or as, I think, no, that's it. Yeah, that's 6. Yeah, here we are. As an artist, when you apply as an artist, regardless of the subcategory that you choose, we ask you to be the primary creator of a new project or a new work, which doesn't necessarily mean that you need to apply with a project that you haven't started working on when you apply for the Camargo Fellowship. It just means that it has to be a project that you will, it means that when you're doing the Camargo Fellowship residency, you will be working on the research phase of this project. but it doesn't mean that it has to be a new project created for this residency. For artists, we also require that you should have had a practice for about 5 years. This doesn't mean that you should have had a practice. If you're a visual artist, it doesn't mean that you need to have had a practice 5 years within the same discipline. It can be 5 years of experimenting with different practices and disciplines and works, but you need to have at least 5 years of experience. And we also require from not only artists, but actually any fellow, anyone who would apply to the Camargo Fellowship to be able to speak English, so a basic English. We don't require you to, just to be able to communicate with the other fellows. As Julie was saying, it's very important that you're able to exchange and to share moments and, conversations and experiences with the rest of the fellows during the residency.
Now we'll go on with the eligibility for scholars. So for scholars, and that's historically what the scholars that have been always welcome at Camargo, people working on, scholars working, doing research on art and humanities related to French Francophonie or Mediterranean region. We require people applying, scholars, to either have a PhD or to be PhD candidate. Really, the last couple of years of the dissertation, because we think it's important for a person to, it's more a place where people need to have already some background, some experience to really make the best of the experience here. But we do really each year, we have 1 or 2 PhD candidates that are selected, and we do ask the selection committee to pay attention to PhD candidates. It's also, and pay attention that they be PhD candidate, but people those that might be more established, and that's also part of the experience of the fellowship, is those exchanges that will happen through the residency. And again, the language, but Zoe already talked about that.
About the thinker category, so if you apply in the category, if you identify yourself as a thinker, it means that it's people who have a research project that they want to develop that's not essentially related to the academia or to the academic field or to a research laboratory. So you can apply as a thinker if you're working in the cultural or creative field. So if you're working as a curator, as a journalist, as a critic, as an architect, as an urban planner, or any kind of profession related to a creative field, culture and art. You can and should be attuned to the theoretical arena in the arts and to be engaged in critical thought. That's something that's important for this fellowship. Yeah.
If we, I saw that someone was raised an hand. What we'll do is we rather go through the presentation, because we might answer some of your questions towards the end of the presentation, and then we'll for sure type in the chat box, and for sure we'll go through those questions one by one. But Camargo Fellowship is not only for individual, but it's also, we welcome collaborative projects. Clearly, because we really want to recognize that more and more, it's people are working together, it's a collaborative team, and it's very interesting, and we really love to have collaborative teams here at Camargo. Due to also the setup of the apartment, the facilities, we can welcome only up to a team of 3 individuals. Each person will receive a stipend, a travel grant, per diems, and a fee. So it's really each individual will receive one. But people will be in one apartment. Of course, each person will have his or her own bedroom. Because of the facilities, we will be able to accommodate only 2 collaborative projects per year, so per session, per like full and spring session. So 2 out of the 14, we can have only 2 collaborative projects selected.
About translation projects, so this concerns, you can apply for the Camargo Fellowship as a translator. This concerns academic translations, so in a more academic or scholarly framework, but also literary translations, so theoretical or research-oriented translation. This concerns more people applying for as translators in the thinker category. This can also concern projects of translation that are framed as creative writing. So this is more related to people who would apply with a translation project from an indie artist category. And once again, it's something that I think is mentioned in the guidelines document, which actually provides a lot of information, important information about the program and the eligibility criteria, application process, but I'm just gonna say it again here. Many people are emailing us to ask us what category they should apply in. I think it's important to, to also trust yourself to be able to select and identify the category that is most relevant to your practice. I think it's also important to keep in mind that for the first round of evaluation in the selection process, you will be, your application will be evaluated by panelists whose practice and perspective is related to the category or subcategory for artists that you applied in. So just keep that in mind as well when you apply.
And another specific question about eligibility for former fellows. We always have former fellows that want to come back and that will apply. It's possible to apply only 3 years after the previous fellowships. And there are always former fellows that, I mean, not always, not every year, but often there are former fellows that are given a new grant. However, what's happened when there is discussion among the panelists, the selection committee, they will always think, okay, if we have 2 applications that are as much relevant, that are really the same level of relevancy for Camargo Fellowship, one is a former fellow, they will tend to say, okay, we prefer to give an opportunity to a new person to get the chance to come to Camargo. Of course, if there is not ex aequo, if there is a clear one is clearly more relevant for Camargo, they will, even if it is a former fellow, they will of course go for this application.
So Julie spoke about the Camargo Fellowship and this residency, the kind of resources it provides, but I'm just gonna highlight that a bit more. The purpose of this residency, especially this residency at Camargo, is to give time and space to research, experimentation, and creation from any kind of disciplines, once again, for research-based residencies. So you can apply with a specific project, or you can apply and just be interested in an area of inquiry. You can apply with a very focused work, or with an open-ended exploration or more explorative project. And there is no obligation, like nothing is meant that we don't ask anything from you as fellows during the residency. The only thing that is mandatory is for you to attend the project discussions. The project discussions, I'm just gonna give a few details about that. It's every week, one fellow is presenting their projects to the group of fellows. From this year on, this used to be a public moment. Now it's become private and only accessible to alumni of Camargo through Zoom, but it's basically about an hour of 40 minutes of the fellow presenting their work in research and then exchanging with the rest of the fellows. And it's a very important moment, specifically in this program, because it's a moment for fellows to really share their work research, but also their concerns as researchers with their background, and to work together. And it's really in these moments that bonds are created among the fellows and that things happen also for the fellows presenting to be nurtured by the perspective that others can bring to their projects.
Good. And so, yeah, and so like exchange and network, as Zoe was saying, is very much a big part of Camargo Fellowship. Is really to be able to be together with other person that one might not have the chance to get to meet through professional life and daily life, and spend that time and go and exchange during 10 weeks, have some formal and informal exchanges and be able to dive deeper. And so it's the exchange within the group on site is important. Of course, there is a possibility to have, for those who want to have also formal and informal links with professionals or persons or institution in the area. And we are happy to assist in doing that.
About the duration, stipend, and accommodation of this residency program. So as Julie was saying, the Camargo Fellowship is divided into sessions, one in fall, one in spring. Both of these sessions will last 10 weeks from actually this upcoming edition onwards. In fall, these 10 weeks are scheduled from September 5th to November 14th, 2023. In spring, they're planned from February 27th to April 29th, 2024. So actually the schedule, the calendar of this residency is more like an academic calendar. It starts in September and it ends just right before the summer.
And those dates are fixed. And the idea is really that the fellows be on site. Of course, there are a few possibilities to travel to the weekend, and a few days we understand that people need to, from time to time, to go to some activities outside. But still, it's not sought as a base, and people be away for 10 days or things like that. It's more sought as a place to do research and exchange. If we talk about stipend, so what we in the past it used to be apartment, each apartment has a kitchen and a bathroom, so it's fully independent. So we ask fellows when they're on site, will prepare food and cook for themselves. So we have we always had a per diem. In the past, it was $250 per week. Then we switched it to 250 euro per week. And now we decided to, on top of that, to increase a little and give an extra 100 euro per week at the moment. I hope we can increase that a little more in the future. And concretely, for in paperwork, it will be, and for tax issues, it will be, it's a grant of 3,500 euro, but it will be 250 euro, so 2,500 euro in per diems, and 1,000 that would be an additional grant. Will provide and cover the international, like the round trip to Cassis in coach, depending on where you are based. It's, of course, it can be flight or train. Of course, we understand that some of you need to look for additional funding to be able to come and to take that time away from your practice or from your home or from your work. So it's really fine with us if you want to apply to other funding, and of course we can issue a letter to support that and things like that. So that's worth, or if you're in sabbatical, that's of course totally fine for us.
About the accommodation during the residency, so you can, if you apply as a collaborative project, you will be granted one apartment. So we have an apartment with 3 bedrooms that can be used by collaborative, by collectives coming to Camargo for a residency. Otherwise, each fellow is given one apartment So you're completely autonomous in your apartment. There is a kitchen, bathroom, bedroom. It's a fully equipped apartment. Your family members can come with you during the residency, of course. So your family or your partner, and your children can also come if they're over 6 years old. For safety reasons, we cannot welcome on site babies at Camargo.
And we ask that children be enrolled into day activities, at least from Monday to Friday. Public schools in Cassis welcome kids from Camargo, and even if the kids don't speak French. It's a small town. It's quite, let's be frank, it's a very wealthy area. So the schools are quite, even the public schools are, the teachers have quite some support. So they are often used to have non-French speaking people coming in, and they really pay attention, and they're used to have people from Camargo. Both the public and the private schools welcome children from Camargo, and we are happy to, if one fellow is coming with children, we're happy to put that person in contact with an alumni that had that experience. It's always good to share experience. And one thing also, we know that for parent artists, it's often very difficult to be able to take that time away. So we got a grant a few years, actually back a few years before COVID, we got a grant from Sustainable Art Foundation to be able to support parent artists to come here. Due to COVID, I mean, of course, most parent artists did not travel to Camargo, or did not apply. We decided, even if Sustainable Art Foundation said, you do whatever you want with that grant, because of COVID, they were very kind to open it up. Even if we needed to use it for as a purpose, we decided to keep it because we think it's very important that this goes to really to parent artists. And we know that each parent has specific needs. There is not one fit all option. So what we propose is to be very flexible and to be able to provide a support of from $500 to $1,000. And just that can be used in different ways depending on specific needs. And we give here a few suggestions, and there is in the application form the possibility to talk about that. So that comes on top of the stipend we talked about.
So we're gonna speak about the application basics. So the application form mainly. The application, so when you apply to the Camargo Fellowship, you need to go on the Camargo Foundation website online. It's also something that I can share with you now on my screen. I think it might be a bit easier, and then we can go back to the, up to the presentation. So when you're on the Camargo Foundation website here, you go to apply current calls. And here you will have the Camargo Fellowship open call for 2023-2024. To learn more about the guidelines, eligibility criteria, etc., related to the open call, you can click here to access the PDF of the guidelines. And to start your application, you only have to click here. I hope it's going to work. Yeah. So when you're here, so this is my personal information that I'm gonna pass. Your save address, it's your address, country, phone number, etc. And so the application form actually starts here. And I'm gonna scroll through it now, but you know, it's not that long. I mean, I've seen longer application forms, but so basically everything is done online. So you have to, you know, fill some, write some text about your project, pick your category or subcategory, just specify if it's a collaborative project or not. Proposal summary, you have the limit of words that you can use to apply for each, subsection of the application form. And then there are files that you can download. According to the category and to the project that you want to apply with, you can download different formats. So you can
upload.
You can upload different formats. You can upload links, videos, texts, with all the time a limit of a certain number of pages and certain number of minutes if you upload videos or sound pieces. And this is something that we can also discuss in the chat. I know last time when we did the seminar, many people had questions about the limit of the word limit, the kind of format that you can upload, the number of pages that you can upload for your portfolio or for your CV or for the differences when you apply as an individual or when you apply as a collective. You can, when you go through this application form on internet, you can save it. So the application form saves itself, and so you can leave it and you can go back to it a couple of days later if you want to. You don't have to finish it when you start it, which is important to know and also super useful, because you can go back to it and take some time to think or to finalize some documents if you need to. We can also go back to that a bit later when we answer your questions. I'm gonna go back to where we were.
I think also in the application, you will see you need to put 2 references. Those are contact only that you have to put. And usually in the past, what happened is sometimes the panelists want to know a little more, or they want to check a few things. They would like to have feedback on one of the applicants before finalizing the decisions. And then we would contact 1 or the 2 references. We don't do it all for each person. We do it from time to time. So that's why we need to have those names here in case.
So about the selection process, you can also check that on our website. You can check the different panelists that worked for the selection process for the past Camargo Fellowship program. There are 2 selection committees. One selection committee is for artists. Regardless of the subcategory you apply with, you will be, at least for the first step of evaluation, evaluated by these panelists. And there is a committee for scholars and thinkers who will also evaluate the application of those who apply in these categories. It's a very selective process because it's a very competitive program. Camargo receives every year between 600 and 1,000, over 1,000 applications for this program.
And we don't really know it will be this year. I mean, COVID has changed a lot of things, but also we have changed the format of the program, changed the grant. So we will see what it will do for this.
And the outcome of the selection process. So we will release the results of the selected applicants in April 2023. So it's a long time. The selection process takes months. And the applications are studied and considered very carefully by the panelists.
If we just look at the selection criteria, of course, there's the quality of the application, the proposal, the project, of the area of inquiry that is proposed, and or different. It is from how it will bring a different perspective to the field. Of course, there is the background of the applicant. But it's very much about how much relevant it is for Camargo, for this program, specific program, this Camargo Fellowship. So the question of also why you want to come to Camargo, why do you apply for this fellowship, is super important. There is no one answer to that. There are a lot of reasons why someone would like to come to Camargo or be part of this fellowship. All are valuable, but it's very important to be very frank there and very open, and to really think about that question in the application form, and also this question, why now? It's also an important question. Why at this stage do you want to come? Those two questions, don't overlook them when you do you fill your application. Of course, also I would say it's not there, but at the end of the selection process, when we are the most suitable application at the end, for that the panelists have selected, of course, there's a question of looking not only at specific application, but looking at the group dynamic and the group diversity with different angles and everything. But that's also a super important at the end. But really, it will be at the end when they look at the group and what type of dynamic we can have. I think we are done with now, and we would like to answer your question. We've seen that there are quite a lot in the chat box and the Q&A, so we'll go ahead.
Okay. So,
and we'll answer one by one and those.
Okay, so someone is asking for the recording of the webinar. We will put it on the YouTube channel of the Camargo Foundation. We will also update the website in the application section for this program, so you can find the link there.
Yeah, the recording, I mean, the presentation of September 16 is quite similar, so probably we'll use one or the other, but in any case,
it was the same presentation.
But we this time we have more. There are a few questions we were not like on number of words and specific things like that we did not have on end last time, so we'll have there if you need them. Yes, we have Wi-Fi on site everywhere, even in the garden.
If I have already worked on a project without any relation to the region, can I still apply? Yes, you can apply with a project that has nothing, that it's not related to the environment in Cassis or to the region. But if your project is in relation to Cassis or the region, please specify it in your application.
Do art and thinker projects need to have a Mediterranean focus as well? No, there is no need. It's really historically Camargo was a place for scholars working on French studies, and then French Francophone, and then it grew to also including Mediterranean studies, but that's not a requirement for art and thinkers.
Do you have examples of fellowship applications that you share?
We don't tend to do that because there is not one exam. It's difficult to, if you give one, and then or even a couple or something like that, then it will say this is the way it should be done, which is not the case. There is not one type of application, and every year also because the panelists are rotating, so every year it's slightly changed. I think it's really it will be misleading in a way. I know that some foundations do that and understand the why it can be important, but that could be misleading.
Okay, so a question regarding the writing samples. Should a writing sample be a published piece of work or not necessarily? I could submit a published piece from 2018, but an excerpt from a far more recent chapter to be published in my forthcoming book might be more relevant to the application. Does the committee have a preference? Thanks.
Clearly, it doesn't have to be a published work. You can go for a sample that is not yet published.
For visual artists working with photography and performance, applying as a collective on a new project.
It's in French, that's why it's translating. Sorry,
I'm
that's
also
why
tired, but it's taking a bit of time. So it's to realize a film. Visual artist working with photography and performance. 2 people, so a collaborative project. Working on a new project about your work as a plastician artist to realize a film with. You can apply in the multidisciplinary section.
Yeah.
You can fully apply
as a collaborative team.
As a yeah, exactly.
I wonder whether this webinar will also be shared online. Yeah, we'll share one of the 2, and I think
one might
probably this one would be a slightly. We're a little more prepared for this one, also technically.
I am proposing to research experiment with my first film project. This film is a hybrid of documentary and fictional film techniques. My background is as a theater, opera, and performance art installation director. Am I applying in the multidisciplinary category of film? As the project is delivered on film, do I discuss the multidisciplinary aspect on the film category? I would say that just also keep in mind who's gonna evaluate your application for the first round. So do you want a panelist with a more sharp focus on film and experience as, you know, in the film sector to look at your project, or do you want it to be evaluated by someone with a more multidisciplinary focus? I think, yeah. And
this is the first round. This is application first read by the panelist that is in that specific discipline, and then he or she, they will do a short selection, and then the of application they think that as the most relevant for Camargo Fellowship, and then all the most relevant application will be read by all the 6 panelists in the artistic panel, and say the scholar thinker panel. So in any case, then there will be it's a discussion between all the panelists.
But if you want to discuss the multidisciplinary aspect of your project, you're welcome to do so, you know.
The question of do one applicant need to apply for a specific period? You will see in the application form, you can decide whether you are available for either or, and also whether you have a preference for one of the session. We then will come back when we have the panelists have decided who are the 14 fellows, then we'll reach out to each person and first propose and ask, like, okay, like you asked for this, so do you want that one? And really, and of course, if there are some, we understand that between now and April, there might be some changes. So we'll also look into, for the 14 people that the panelists has decided to select, we'll look how to accommodate that.
Can you please give examples of the projects, of some projects that you have accepted and why you selected them? So if you want to check on the website of Camargo, we have published the results for the last edition. So you can check on the website the profiles and projects of the current fellows of the full session 2022, and you can also check the profiles and projects of the fellows that were selected for the spring session 2023. You can also check the profiles of the different panelists from last year, so you can, you know, look at the different projects that were selected in the different disciplines, and you can also look at the, you know, background of the panelists who took part in this past selection process. I think that may be insightful.
But keep in mind that the panel is changing. We have panelists have a 3-year term, and it's not renewable. So after 3 years, people will rotate off and we bring new people. But yeah. But if you look at in the directory of past residents, you can really see, understand better.
It's also on the website.
Yeah. If or the 7 residencies allocated, it's actually or the between we have 14 residencies at fellowship that are allocated. 7 will be allocated to artists and 7 to scholar and thinkers. Within the 7 for artists, we ask the panelists to make sure that there are people that will be involved with text, people that will be involved with sound, people that will be involved with movement, and people that will be involved with movement. Then that if they want, for example, they think that in a specific year, there should be 2 or 3 visual artists, that's their decision. And for scholar thinkers, there is we don't have recommendation on like among the 7, how many scholars there should be and how many thinkers there should be. We ask them that they be not a balance, but that they be both.
3 questions. Is it quite normal for fellows to organize critiques among themselves outside the once-a-week presentation? Do they often eat together? It really depends on the cohorts. It really depends of the energy of the group, of what the fellows come to look for as well in this residency. So I guess it really depends on the
I've been here as the director for 8-9 years. I can tell you there are a lot of informal gathering, dinners, drinks, hikes, swim, discussions. So yes, and yes, they do it. We have not only they invite each other to their apartments, but also there is a place called the Chinese Terrace where there's a big table outside, just overseeing the harbor and the Cap Canaille and the horizon. And that's a place where people gather for drinks and dinners.
Yes.
Walking the the Parc National des Calanques, it's walking distance. It's like 15 minutes away, the entrance. And then it's possible to walk for hours within the National Park. Is the name Camargo related to Camargo related to Camargue? No, it's actually related to Mademoiselle Camargo, who was a choreographer that shortened the dresses of dancers to have female dancers able to dance more and to change the style and make it more, to change the choreographies.
Would agree.
That's hundreds of years ago, so it's not so. But also because Jérôme, he'll like to make things not so clear cut. So it's also kind of misleading between Camargue and Camargo, Mademoiselle Camargo.
Would a group of 3 that is focused on music fit the music apartment, or perhaps the other rehearsal space? We do not require a keyboard. In the composer's house, there is 1 bedroom with a double bed and 1 bedroom with 2 single beds. So it's up to you to see if you want to share. Who wants to share a room with 2 single beds?
Twin beds. Can you please tell more about the selection process? Or do you usually see the portfolio from screen? Yeah, from a screen, from a projection, or you print them. The selection process is done on people like the panelists are located in very different continents. Is really a choice. We in the past, when before I arrived, panelists were all in the US, were all US based. And clearly, mainly US and UK based, maybe a few UK based. And as part of making Camargo more international, there was a clear decision to say we want panelists to be based in different countries, different continents. And so it meant that we were not able to bring everybody together to do the selection committee. So the selection committee will happen online, but we give to the panelists the application in advance. They have a lot of time to read them. It's a long process. So there is first a pre-screening from the team, or then to make sure of the eligibility, and also like do a first pre-screening if there are a lot of application in one category, to look at the most relevant, and then each panelist will have some application to look at and then give feedback, and then it will be going to the cross-reading between the different panelists of the artist committee or the thinker scholar committee, and that the last round, because it's very much the question of on-site being artist or being scholar thinker is the discipline is not always the most important, but it's a group dynamic is very important. So at the end we have a committee that is composed of two panelists from the artists committee and two panelists from the scholar thinker committee.
Yes, airfare, round-trip international travels are covered by Camargo for the applicants, for the fellow or for the collective coming to Camargo. We don't cover transportation for the partners of the fellows or for their kids.
And for the kids, like the grant that we are presenting for artists could be used, of course, for covering transportation or part of it. Non-English writer, the application must be, you must fill the form in English. Attachment can be in English or in French. We don't accept attachment in other languages, just simply because the panelists will not be able to review them.
For artists, do the 5 years of professional working includes art studies? Not necessarily. You should have had a practice of 5 years, but it's not required. Yes. We are currently selecting the new panelists for the program, for the upcoming program. And so we will update the website as soon as we have the full committee for the selection of this upcoming edition.
Well, and also we don't communicate the committee before the deadline, just so that they don't be pressure on them also.
Is it
the dark room located inside the visual artist studio? Yeah, it's located within. You have to go through the visual artist studio to access it. In the past, there was one occasion when there was one visual artist using the big room, and this person said, and there was one other person on site who wanted to use the dark room, and the visual artist said, yeah, I have no problem if they discussed, and they said, I have no problem if that other fellow can come and use the dark room from time to time, but we will never arrange it without asking in advance, and usually it's not something we like to do. So it happened once, and it went very smoothly because both people had agreed and agreed together. But if not, we don't want to do that. We understand it's important to have that each person has its own space.
Is it possible to organize a workshop, research, translation, or creative writing at Camargo during the fellowship with external participants as well?
Yeah, that's possible. We won't be able to accommodate, like, for overnight the people, the other participants. There are quite a few hotels around Camargo, walking distance, and of course Airbnbs. So it's possible. It would not be so difficult if you have budget to, or they have budget to cover accommodation. You just have to let us know. I mean, we have different spaces that could fit that, and we would need to coordinate it with you. Can you make changes to the proposed project between the time we apply and the residency? We do understand that between now and the time of the residency, life has changed and people have changed and everything, and there will be quite some change. So we understand that there will be some changes, and that should be discussed with us when it's closer to the residency. But of course, we want applicants to do it in the best, how do you say, as much as you know.
Alors, a question we already answered. It is possible to express a preference about fall or spring session. You can refer to the application form online. The chat is disabled, sorry.
Yeah, it's very much we wanted you to use a Q&A, so we don't have to juggle between the two places and end up only answering the Q&A, but not the chat box.
For a collaborative project, do you request 2 references or 4 references? Can they be the same references for the 2 contacts? It's 2 references. For any project submitted, whether it be individually or collaboratively, it's 2 contacts of reference.
Does sample work must be submitted in English? I already, I think, answered that question. The samples should be, at least for text, if you want the panelists to understand them, they should be in English or French. I could understand that, for example, a performance be in another language, but then you just be aware that most probably the panelists won't be able to understand.
Alors, let's check that.
You need for collaborative projects, you need to have we need portfolios of individual, and of course if you are often working together and you have examples of what you do as a collaborative team, it's always interesting for the panelists to have access to that.
But the portfolio should not exceed 20 pages.
Yeah, just be aware, panelists have, if you upload too many, more than it is recommended in the application form, in all the indication, then you run the risk that the panelists will not be able to go through everything. And so it's better to not go over the recommendation.
How established in your field do you think applicants need to be accepted? For example, if you're a writer, do you have to have published a full-length manuscript?
I would say it's better. Yeah, you need to have something that has been published already. Is it like a full book, or do you have already novels that have been published in a magazine? We tend, when we brief the panel just at the beginning of the selection committee, but also when we brief them in advance, when we send them all the application, I think it's always interesting that the panel I tell them, okay, we know Camargo, so because of the setting and the place, being in this small town and not being in a Marseille or in Paris on a big hub, and because it's facing the sea, it's quite an intense experience in the sense that it brings one person to reflect, to refocus, to think about his, her, or their own experience. And for someone who is like just super at the beginning, it might be sometimes quite challenging. Nevertheless, I think it can be also, I always tell to the panelists, it can also be, you can make a choice to give to one person where this person might not be as, it might be more risk, maybe is a gamble, but that's super important that we can make that. And also the group dynamic makes that. It's often there are a lot of collaboration and discussion and cross support. So I think it's always important to have a mix of people with some experience, people with less.
Is there a preference for contemporary art project, visual art? No. There is no preference. For creative writers, do they publish their works independently afterwards?
Yeah, we are not involved in publishing or producing or presenting, and the work that is worked on here at Camargo during the residency clearly belongs to the artist or to the scholar and thinker.
Someone's not sure about the distribution. So About the fellows, it's going to be 14 fellows for the whole year. So for the 2 sessions, and it will be 7 fellows in the fall session and 7 fellows in the spring session.
If applying under the thinker category, can writing samples be submitted as well? Yes.
Yes. Is the discipline defined by my history as an artist or by the project I'm proposing? That's up to you to decide.
Yeah.
Would I need to bring my own art supplies, or there is a store nearby where I could purchase material? You would have to go to Marseille, I'm afraid.
Yeah, the good art supplies shops are in Marseille. And I would say maybe it's good that you bring, if you have specific things, bring them, because if you don't find them, then it will take you time at the beginning to find everything. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. Collaborative project. My 2 collaborators have less than 5 years experience.
Someone is asking if applying as a collaborative with 3 persons, if 2 of them have less than 5 years of experience, are they eligible to the fellowship, although one out of the 3 has more than 5 years experience?
We never had that question, so I would say yes, go ahead and apply.
A portfolio should have maximum 20 pages. Is it okay to send you a work in progress in this portfolio among the other works? I also wonder if you would prefer to see the most recent works. Do you consider to see also the web page? So you can, there is a field in the application form when you can share your website, if you have one. About the portfolio, it depends in which category you apply. So if you apply as a scholar or as a thinker, you can submit writing samples. If you apply in the artist category, as we were saying earlier, you can also submit writing samples.
I would like to work on a film which is based on a short story, but that is written by someone else. Should I send this story as part of the work sample? No, I think what is important for the panelist is to know about your work. You can, in your narrative, of course, you should in your narrative talk about this short story and explain what it is about and who is the author, but I would not include it as a work sample.
So sorry, I didn't get you right. Did you say Camargo will not pay for partners' international round trips? Yes, we don't cover the travel for partners that would come with you. We can only cover the costs of the fellows international round trip, and also you can ask for a parent stipend, and we can discuss how you can what we can grant you. We are not related. We are work collaborators.
Yeah, that's the first time we get that one.
Yes.
If I do not have an English translation to the work I'm currently working on, can I submit translation to my previous books? Yes. A joint application if there is a collaborative project. Yeah.
Yes, you can apply with a collaborative project and as a collective to be in residency with your collaborators.
Are the references for endorsement purpose or for emergency contact use? I would say in a way, they are, of course, people that we might contact at some point, more towards the end of the selection process. To be very frank, I think also the panelists are also looking at the name that I mentioned there, and it plays, I think, a role, of course, if the applicant is maybe, for example, someone that they don't know of, but when they see the references are people that they will know of, Not that they will know them personally, but they will know of because they are known in the field. Of course, it gives also more feeling of who the applicants is, depending on who is mentioned other references. But that's the usual, nothing new there.
For collaborative projects, you must upload one portfolio, so it's up to you to decide how you organize your portfolio. You can present in your portfolio projects that you already have done as a collective, or you can present your individual projects. Also keep in mind for the CVs, when you apply as a collective, it's 3 pages maximum per CV, so you can, have 3 pages per person.
In a portfolio, do you prefer to see the artworks or photos of exhibitions, installation, or a mix? I think a mix. Photos of exhibition, of installation often is difficult to have an idea of what is a real artwork. So good to have a mix.
If a book is already published, do you want excerpts from the work, or can I supply links that show reviews of the work?
You have to be conscious again of the time of the panelists, so you should indicate a recommendation of what type of, which page to which extract the panelists should look at, or given a recommendation, an indication of where you would like the panelists to focus on. Also, it's important for the panelists to be able to actually read your actual writings. To read reviews about your work is something else. If I submit a writing sample that is art historical, can I submit images beyond the 20 pages of text, which are I need to plug my brain again. If I submit a writing sample that is art historical,
can I submit the images? Can I submit images beyond the 20 pages of text?
Yeah, if you have a text with images, but again, like, don't overdo it neither.
Do you inform the applicant before you contact the reference, so we can let them know what they will be contacted? I think as soon as
we don't inform the applicant when we contact a reference. The references are there to be. That's why we ask for the contact details, and but we won't first contact the applicants to let.
You should inform the people that you put in your references of contact, that you put them in your application form, so they expect to be contacted if you happen to be one of the final applicants. I am mainly a visual artist, but my main project, with which I would apply, concerns much more the intellectual development and the written part of it than the actual creative one. Is it obviously related to humanities and critical thought when you recommend to apply as an artist without thinker? So intellectual development and written part can be super creative, and I would say once again, think about if you want to apply with this project, more intellectual development. I mean, if your project has different aspects and there is a written aspects, or a more, like, as you said, intellectual development of a bigger project that involves also creativity in terms of maybe more artistic practices. I don't know how you define creativity, but I think about what the whole project looks like, because even if you're researching and developing just one aspect of it, think of your project as a whole, and also think of what kind of panelists you would like to have read your application in the first place, and the perspective that they will bring.
And the last question is regarding visual art project. The emphasis is the idea or the final product. I think you need to talk about both. But again, and it's little, like, with quite a few questions there, it's very difficult to answer, like, in general terms to some questions without knowing who you are, what the work you are doing, and so that's we try our best to just answer But I think like for that last question, it's clear that Camargo, as we were saying at the beginning, is place for research, for taking time, for reflecting, for refocusing, for exchanging. So the process is important for Camargo, and it's important for the panelists. So that's important to mention about the ideas. I think we are done with all the questions. Thanks a lot. Sorry, it took a little more time, but I hope we answered all questions. Of course, should you have any additional question, don't hesitate to reach out to Zoe. The apply@Camargo email is reaching Zoe, so you can always send her an email, so she will answer. She has and keep in mind one thing is the application. It's really closing on October 1st, midnight French time. So CT and really it's sharp. It will close. Is something that is set on submittable. We cannot say it will close at midnight it's not midnight past 5 minutes past midnight or something like this. It's really closing at midnight sharp. So keep in mind not to do it last minute. And again, on that Saturday, this October 1st, it's a Saturday. So the offices will be closed. So we won't be able to answer on that day. And so the last time that Zoe will be able to answer will be on September 30 on Friday up until end of the afternoon French time.
Last day of September.
Yeah, so thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And looking forward to hearing back from you. Bye.
Bye.